Hello, everyone here today. Welcome in this happy Sunday morning here. This is Viper Strike 95 here. Today we're here in Burbank, California. And we are in Bob Hope Airport here in beautiful Burbank, California. This is where we stopped last week during our trip through LA. This was actually this will be the first Sunday stream I've had since all the way back November 4th. Well, because I had a really nice vacation during that time, but it's great to be back here on Sundays. So this is the continuation of my Play Ball series, where I talk about and dive into the deep history of Major League Baseball, in the history of the sport with spectators and stuff. And today we're on our way to San Francisco, California, in San Francisco Bay. We're going to visit Oakland in San Francisco today. We're going to visit two of Major League Baseball's most historic and interesting franchises, the Oakland Athletics and the San Francisco Giants. Both franchises have been around for decades as Major League Baseball, one of their most iconic franchises. So we're going to be doing this here today. So let's get to our flight plan here today, everyone. Prince All is the route. It's actually KCVH. Let me go change one of my commands. Like I said, I'm still a little new to the stream elements in OBS, but I've changed the voice settings since my last stream on Wednesday. But good to see you, friend to all in the chat. PH. Save. Now the command's been changed. Good to see you, friend all. So let's pull up this little Navmap here. So for our Navmap, let me load in the flight plan. So we're gonna take out of here from Burbank, California. And our plan here today is we're going to take off here for Burbank. We're going to head to Bakersfield, California for Sandlin Park, fly over Metals Field. Then we'll be heading to our first leg of the trip at Visala Municipal, right outside of Visala, California. Then the second leg of the trip, we'll be heading to the outskirts of Fresno, one of the downtown Fresno, at Candlestick Park, home of the Single A Fresno Grizzlies. And then we'll head our way to Hollister Municipal, right outside of Hubble, California. And then for the final leg of the trip, we'll be heading we're going to head to San Jose. We're going to visit the home of the San Jose Giants minor league team, SAP Arena, home of the San Jose Sharks. Levi Stadium, the home of the San Francisco 49ers football team. Also, Stanford University. Then we'll visit, we're going to visit the site that used to be the home of Candlestick Park, the old home of the Giants and 49ers. Steel Stadium, this right outside of Mission District in San Francisco. Oracle Park, which is actually one of the PUIs in the sim. That's the home of the Giants, and I consider to be one of the best ballparks in baseball. The Golden Gate Bridge, Alcatraz, and then we'll visit the site of the Oakland Coliseum, and then land here at Metropolitan Oakland for the final stop. So that's kind of a bit of our plan here today. So that's kind of our plan here for today. We're going to be taking care of this ourselves. So for the plane we're going to be taking for the trip, let me bring this plane back. So the plane we're going to take for our trip, we're not going to take something too fast, but something that'll take us pretty quickly. This plane here is actually a Daher TBM, but for some reason it's really acting up weirdly. Let me get back. Yeah, for some reason the TBM is acting really, really weird. Don't ask me why. But this is the Daher TBM. Now, the TBM is a really great business plane produced by Daher. The TBM is one of my favorite planes in the sim because it's a turboprop plane. It can take an entire family of people. It's got fantastic range. The most modern TBMs could easily have a range around nearly 2,000 nautical miles. It has a service ceiling of 31,000 feet. It can go 303 knots at max speed, which is very fast among all turboprops. I mean, you can outrun some of the slower planes. It's a really nice plane. It's also really expensive. Like they're at least around $5 million to get one of these planes. It was originally the original TBMs was developed back in 1988 as a partnership between the American Moody Plane Company and the French light aircraft manufacturer Socata. But it's become a really big success and has grown greatly since then. So definitely a very interesting plane with an interesting history. The TBM, this TBM's from the base sim of the game. So that means everyone can get the TBM, which is pretty cool. Now we're going to get this TBM started from the cold in the dark. Let's say we already completed our inspections. They've already done that for us, so we're going to go with the crash lever. It's already been pulled up. Now we're going to do source. Now we need to set this up to battery or GPU. But since we're not connected to a ground power unit, we're just going to do battery. We're going to turn the generator onto main. This thing does have an engine generator on it. We got that set. Now we need to test the safety lights. So there is a test on this right here. This little button. Right.
TOS system test. Okay.
But they probably work properly because once we turn it on, yeah, they work properly. And we check the fuel on board. So we're going to get the fuel. We're going to put it to 75% fuel. So that's good. Engines. Now we're going to start the engine. Thankfully, this is a single engine, so this won't be that complicated. Not nearly as complicated as we're going to set the ignition switch to off. Then we're going to turn on the auxiliary boost pump. So we're going to turn this thing on. We clear the propeller area. That's already been cleared for us. Now we got to turn on the star for 2 seconds. Off. 1, 2, off. Now, mind you, it's going to take this a second because if the residual is above 150. But that's only if it's above 150. We set this to auto. We got the boost. 1, 2. Got that done. Auto. Like I said, it's actually not that difficult to start the TBM. It's actually not very difficult. Throttle low. Auxiliary boost pump should be set to auto. We turn on the engine and we go to the main generator. It's already been set. And the bleed, we should auto or max diff. We're going to set this to auto. And Then we turn on the initial separator. Now the reason we do that is because the separator will prevent particles from getting into the engines. And when putting that fast, you probably don't want to have all that stuff cluttered in the engines. Turn on the taxi lights. That and the parking brake should be. Go. Now we're back into the plane. This is weird, my plane's not. This is weird, my throttle's not working. This is really weird. It's not working. Hey there, Mcgraw and Broom. Where are you playing on? PC? This has been really weird. I think it must be something. Hey everyone, good to see you, Martel. I'm having a bit of issues with the something wrong with my sensitivity. No, my sensitivity should be good. This is really weird. This is really. I think you have to get out of the detent by clicking the right throttle. This has never happened to me before. Actually, I think I might have an. I'm gonna go exit to the main menu for a bit, and then get it restarted. I'm gonna restart the main menu and just go back into the runway and then get back right. There. I'm gonna restart back into the runway. I restarted back in the runway I was. See if that works again. Because that was a bit weird if you ask me. Let me hold on for a sec. Show. You. That works much better. Okay, now this works much better now. That works. Okay. So, so I'm gonna go ahead and pull up the first thing for my slideshow today. This here is Athletic Giants by the Bay. The reason I named this one is because, well, both of the teams are Athletics and Giants. So I think this would be pretty fun. So for this one, we're not going to go really that fast. We're going to go around 230 knots. And according to my thing, we need to get to 7,000 feet. So at least to get over the hills. So 7,000 feet is the altitude we need to go to. Let me get ahead. And we need to go to 322 degrees heading. So let's go ahead and take this off. So I did a lot of stuff to adjust the mic and everything, so things should work the way they do. I'm not going to go particularly quick onto this as well. This plane can get much faster though than the 230 to 235 knots I have. So we're going to get up and we're going to climb for a bit. We're going to circle around for a bit. Great audio. Thanks. I did some improvements with the mic and such. I actually added some new mic filters, not just noise suppression, but also gain, noise gate, and all that. So the audio should be better, and also it's nice that I adjusted the application audio stuff. And that's because I'm now on Streamlabs. I'm not on Streamlabs OBS anymore. I'm on OBS Studio, which I think is a really good thing for me. It's a really big improvement. Yeah, I like the TBM. It's like a fighter jet in terms of speed. I was originally thinking about flying the Mustang today, but I decided, I'd rather fly the TBM because it has autopilots. Okay, we need to now get the autopilot. And then FLC. This should help us get to the altitude we need to. So for the slideshow today, I'm going to go ahead and cover a few things about our slideshow for today. So we're going to head to Bakersfield, California. Now, when a lot of people think about when a lot of people think country music, they usually think of Nashville or Memphis or anywhere in the South. But actually, it turns out that Bakersfield was the founder. A lot of people consider Bakersfield to be the birthplace of country music because of stars like Buck Owens, Merle Haggard, and others. Put Bakersfield as a major music capital of the West. And it's also home to the iconic Fox Theater and Buck Owens' own Crystal Palace. And there's also one more famous person I know that's from Bakersfield, that being legendary Giants wide receiver Frank Gifford. He played high school at Bakersfield. Definitely a very iconic football player, that's for sure. Bakersfield is also a very important area for agriculture and energy production as well. And finally, the last thing I want to point at for Bakersfield is also not only is it very well known for country, but it's also known for other types of music, including jazz, like Gregory Porter, and then heavy metal, as one of the more iconic new metal bands of the 90s, Korn, was formed in Bakersfield. So definitely something to keep in mind about Bakersfield. I think we're high enough. I think we could turn off the initial separator. I think we're getting pretty high enough into the sky. So the next thing I want to talk about is the San Francisco Giants. Now, the San Francisco Giants have been one of Major League Baseball's older franchises. And this franchise has been around since 1881, 1883 actually, as it was originally known as the New York Gothams. And right now they play in the National League West. And if you wonder how did the team all the way from New York get to San Francisco, well, they moved out west in 1957. I'll talk more about that when I get to the history. Being one of Major League Baseball's most successful franchises, the Giants have won 8 World Series championships, 5 in New York and 3 in San Francisco. They have 23 National League pennants, which is tied second all. It's actually around second all time behind the St. Louis Cardinals, and have won 9 National League West titles. They currently play at Oracle Park, which many fans, including myself, consider to be one of the best ballparks in the league. And their team colors being black, orange, metallic gold, and cream are their team colors. And they've worn those team colors since their founding in New York. What building is what we see on the slide? Let me go show you, Martel. This one is the Fox Theater. The Fox Theater is a very iconic theater here in Bakersfield. And a lot of different people call Fox Theater their home here in Bakersfield. This was opened back in 1930, and it was used for all sorts of events, including community events, movies, and music. And all sorts of different movie and events, music. There's all sorts of bands and movie events that have been performed here. In terms of music events, you got guys like John Fogerty of Queen's Clearwater Revival, Ice Cube, Shine Down, Buck Owens, Johnny Cash, and way more performed in music performance. So yes, that is the iconic Fox Theater for you. But getting back to the main slide, I'm going to talk about this. So the San Francisco Giants are also Major League Baseball's winningest franchise. In fact, they were the first team to win over 10,000 games, and they have now 11,301 wins and 9,773 losses, making them the winningest franchise of all time. And that's why they have more wins than any other team in professional sports, believe it or not. Not the Yankees, not the Dodgers, not even the Cardinals. They are the winningest. And that's what's one of the most interesting facts about the Giants. The origins of the Giants. I forgot to put more pictures on these slides. Eric Flight's in the chat. Good to see you, Eric. Hey, I was caught on your stream last night. I was with the raid party with Lights with Joel. I was watching Allison earlier. Then I was watching Splash the Sixes Flight. Then he raided to Joel, and then Joel raided you. So great to see you, Eric. Yes, we're flying to San Francisco. So the tale of the Giants goes all the way back in 1883 when millionaire tobacco tycoon John B. Day and veteran amateur baseball player Jim Ritchie created the Giants as a second baseball club for those two. They entered the National League all the way back in 1883, and within 2 years, they changed their name for the first and only time in franchise history they changed the Giants, and they stuck that name ever since. Mind you, they were a powerhouse in the late 1880s, as they were really successful with two national league pennants and world championships in 1888 and 1889. However, things not last too long afterwards. The 1890s was kind of an unknown decade. In 1902, that left the Giants. In 1902, the Giants just weren't really that great back in during 1902, and there was a lot of very unfortunate events in the franchise. And because of this, they were 53.5 games behind the front runner of that division. Yes, you've heard that right, 53.5. I did a marathon race back, but you actually went in Oakland and took off. Oh yeah, I forgot you did that 27-hour stream. You landed in you were supposed to land in San Francisco, but you landed in Oakland. Well, I mean, we're gonna fly over both those airports, so it's not that big of a deal there, Eric. And due to this, in 1903, Friedman actually signed a guy named John Mcgraw as player manager. Now, John Mcgraw, well, I actually have a whole slide dedicated to Mcgraw later, but John Mcgraw was one of baseball's all-time greatest managers. And he completely defined the New York Giants for much of the 20th century, for much of the first. Now, the Giants under Mcgraw famously snubbed their first World Series chance in 1904. This was one of the most infamous series, and because of the events of that, the two leagues had to come in agreement to host an official World Series the next year. This was a very famous event during the time. But thankfully for the Giants, the next year they beat the Afflecks for their first title, and trust me, this would not be the first time they faced the Afflecks in the World Series. And the Giants, for the rest of the 1900s, after several frustrating years in the 1900s, the Giants experienced a mixture of success and hard luck. They went to 3 straight World Series in 1911, 1912, and 1913, but they lost to the A's, Red Sox, and then the A's again in those 3 World Series. And it's definitely something very interesting to point out for the Giants. I wish I would have posted more pictures. I wish I could. But the Giants have had some historically successful players like Christy Matthewson, Casey Stengel, and all that sort of stuff. Jim Thrope he even coached some of those players too. As well. So then afterwards, then we gotta talk about after losing the series in 1917 to the White Sox, the Giants then rebounded into the 1920s as they won the championship in 1920 and 1921 over the New York Yankees. But after that, in 23 and 24, in 1923 and 24, they fell into those 2 straight World Series for John Mcgraw. Eventually, not much went after in the 1920s, but Jim Mcgraw actually retired and handed over the team to Bill Terry after 31 seasons as manager, which is an extremely long time. But it's not. But as you'll see later today, that he is not actually the longest to stay in one team. For that, once they handed over to Bill Terry, the Giants won 3 pennants under his leadership, including a 1933 World Series victory against the Washington Senators. But unfortunately, they had to face the Yankees powerhouse in 1936-37. And mind you, they were both in the same city, mind you, because the New York Giants and the New York Yankees are right next to each other. Because let me go ahead and show you the map when I'm talking about. So if we go over here, I'm going to go over here and go to New York. So in New York, here's Harlem. Now Harlem is where the Giants actually played, right here in Harlem. So I'll show you the spot where the Polo Grounds were. This is where the Polo Grounds were originally built. And right here is the Yankees. So literally, they're just right across the Harlem River. I am not actually joking with that. That's actually what it was. But getting back into that, eventually, once Terry left, guess who replaced him? Oh yeah, Giants legend Mel Ott, who is one of the greatest Giants of all time and one of their all-time great players. But during the war years, it proved to be quite difficult for the Giants to succeed as a team. They just couldn't exactly get it together. But thankfully, things went much better through the late 40s, though. Theo Durcher joined the Giants midway through the 1948 season, and there was some controversy to that, but Durcher proved everyone wrong as the Giants were incredibly successful during this time. In 1951, the Giants took home the National League pennant that year by the final weekend against the Brooklyn Dodgers. And this was actually hit by Bobby Thompson during the final game in the bottom of the ninth, and he beat the Brooklyn Dodgers to win the pennant in a moment known as "Shot Heard Round the World," which I posted on my Discord. So I did have a Discord for everyone who wants to check this out, and it actually has Bobby Thompson's home run during that time. It was a very iconic moment in the sport, and definitely something a lot of people need to realize. So I got it in my sports media stuff. And let me go ahead and give you all the link, what I'm talking about. So this here is the shot of her around the world. Still one of the most iconic moments in baseball history. However, they had to face the Yankees in the 1950s, and that was not an easy victory. But 3 years later, though, they went back to the World Series in 1954, and they took on what was potentially one of the most dominant teams in history, the 111-win Cleveland Indians in that series, which are right now the Guardians. And this was marked by Willie Mays' legendary catch in Game 1, called the catch. And thanks to the momentum from that, the Giants stunned the baseball world by beating the Indians in a sweep in 1954. Now, if you want to know what that catch kind of looked like, I think a lot of you have seen this picture before, but let me go ahead and show you. There's a lot of photos and moments from his catch and such. Let me go ahead and open the image. You guys don't mind. So this is Willie Mays' catch, mind you. Now, Foolish Baseball, that another really cool content creator I followed, he did a video all on Willie Mays' catch. And this one was a really awesome video. And it turned out that catch was even better than you would have expected it to be. Because he did an amazing video on that. And it shows you the actual statistics and details about this. This is the second link. But it was just to show you how impressive that catch was. And that's still one of the most iconic moments. However, things did not always go what the Giants fans wanted, though. As despite the amazing catch and the World Series, the Giants in New York were about to end. As the New York Giants wanted to, owner Horace Stoneham wanted to move the Giants out of the old and dilapidated Polo Grounds. We eventually met with San Francisco officials, and they agreed to move the team to San Francisco for the 1958 season. And ironically, this happened at the same time as Walter O'Malley moving the Dodgers, which would make New York City only a one baseball team city until 1962. The one city baseball team. a one-city baseball team. When the Giants moved to San Francisco, they played at the old Seal Stadium for 2 seasons before they moved to their new home at Candlestick Park in 1960. And Seal Stadium was the minor league ballpark for the San Francisco Seals, which was most well known for being the team that was developing Joe DiMaggio. In 1962, the Giants took home their first pennant in San Francisco, and they took the New York Yankees to 7 games before they lost it. But the Giants in San Francisco have been quite a tumultuous history, though. Even though the Giants did not play in the World Series to 1969, the teams of the 60s were continuing to be really good teams, thanks to several Hall of Famers, most notably Orlando Cepeda, Willie McCovey, and Juan Marichal, all Hall of Fame caliber talent. The Giants returned back to the postseason in 1971, but they lost to Roberto Clemente and Willie Stargell's Pirates in the championship series. And due to the failure of the 1970s, wasn't really that great of a decade, though, for the Giants. As with all the losses they suffered through all the 70s, the Giants didn't really become that successful. And the closest they got was to 1982 in a 3-way pennant race, but they just came short again in the 1970s. And then during much of the 80s, there was a lot of talks about relocation. In fact, in 1992, they nearly got relocated to St. Petersburg. So instead of the San Francisco Giants, we would have had the Tampa Bay Giants. Yeah, kind of a weird thing to talk about, but thankfully it got prevented, which thank goodness it was. I mean, there's that. But that wasn't the only thing that went well for the Giants, because the Giants also acquired a future superstar. I'm talking about Barry Bonds, actually. With the addition of Barry Bonds in the team, the Giants in '93 competed for a pennant race for the National League West, but after a bad final week, they kind of fell out of the race. After a few seasons not making the postseason, the Giants in 2000 finally took home a division title and had the best record in the league, but unfortunately they fell to the Mets. Though 2 years later, the Giants returned to the World Series back in 1989. I forgot to talk about 1989. The 1989 World Series, they got absolutely crushed by the Afflecks. And that series was most well known for the earthquake that happened during the series. They faced against the Angels in 2002, and this was a great series, but despite everything, including Barry Bonds, it just wasn't enough as the Angels beat them in the World Series. The team returned back the next year, but the Florida Marlins kind of ruined their plan. And then for the rest of the decade of the 2000s, they kind of rebuilt, but they had great pieces, though. Tim Lincecum, Buster Posey, and Pablo Sandoval were all young talent that the Giants were developing. In 2010, led by Bruce Bochy and all those young talent, they took home the National League West. And once they returned back to the World Series, they beat the Rangers in 5 games to not only win their first title since 1954, but give the city of San Francisco a world championship, which was really satisfying if you ask me. And then the Giants became a bit of a mini. I'm all over Bakersfield. Where are you at, guys? I'm over Bakersfield too. Did you disappear? I am over Bakersfield. I think we all disappeared. Yeah, here's Bakersfield. Let me go ahead. This is Bakersfield. I'm going to go ahead and disconnect the autopilot for a sec. So we're going to fly over Simlin Ballpark. This used to be the home of the Bakersfield Blaze minor league team. So this is Bakersfield. The Simlin Ballpark should be down below. It should be across the river. Yeah, there's Simlin Ballpark. It's right over here. There she is. there's the Simlin thing. I just fell out of my sky because of overspeed. No, Martell, no. No, Martell, no. Oh, no. Why? Of all the things to happen, just why did that have to happen? Oh, no. And then getting back on topic, due to this, the Giants then went on a mini dynasty as they won another championship in 2012 and 2014. In 2012, they managed to stun the Tigers in the World Series, and in 2014 beat the Royals for a span of 3 titles in 5 years. The most dominant era for the Giants since their time in New York. But after those series, though, the Giants were inconsistent. They took home the division title in 2021 with 107 wins in 2021, the most recent series in 2021. Yeah, 107 wins, which is a franchise record this past season. But however, they were stunned by the LA Dodgers in the NLDS. And believe it or not, this was the first time the Dodgers and Giants have ever met in the postseason. It's weird. The Yankees and Red Sox met many times in the postseason, but the Dodgers and Giants never met until this past year. So for the Giants, I have some really interesting players to talk about. The Giants being one of the oldest franchises in all of Major League Baseball, and being one of the longtime most historic franchises, this wouldn't be really much surprise we won't talk about legends. Hey, Okando, welcome! Actually, let me give Okando a shout out. So Okando is a really cool flight simmer. He is a bush pilot like me. He's a bush pilot. He's part with the Bush League Legends stuff like I am. So I want to give him a shout out because I think he's a really cool, chill flight sim streamer like me. And I also want to give Eric Flight a shout out too, because Eric Flight is really cool as well. And I want to give Eric Flight one too. He's a really cool guy as well. So give these two. Bush or bust, yep. Well, I'm taking the TBM so Kando, I'm taking the TBM for my baseball inspired series from San Francisco to Oakland. So I'm taking the TBM for a bit, taking a bit on the slower side for that. And I'm covering the Giants and Afflecks today. So thank you for coming by. I really appreciate it. So the first player I want to mention is going to be not a player, but a manager. John Mcgraw, one of the greatest managers of all time. Spent 31 seasons with the team, and he was inspired by legendary manager Ned Hanlon. He was lauded for his leadership, and while he may have been a tough guy on a lot of his players he managed, he made them play their best, and he didn't need superstars to win championships. He made the most out of guys you wouldn't even expect. He won 2,763 games. He only lost 1,948 times, and led them to 3 World Series titles in 1905, 1920, and 1921. John Mcgraw truly is one of the all-time, and he joined the Hall of Fame in 1937 in the second ever Hall of Fame class as well. Then the next player I want to talk about is going to be probably one of the greatest pitchers of all time, and he dominated an era where pitching was already dominant. Christy Matthewson was one of the most dominant pitchers in Major League history, and he still ranks top 10 in many categories, including wins, strikeouts, and ERA. He has strong control and a dominant screwball. He was so good with it that Christy Matthewson was in one of the original 5 members of the Hall of Fame in 1936. Unfortunately, he ended his life a bit earlier than usual, though, and that was because he served in World War I as part of the Chemical Weapons Service. And during training, he was accidentally exposed to chemical weapons, which led him to contract tuberculosis, and that led to his death in 1925. But despite all of that, Matthewson's legacy is massive. He's won 373 games, he had an extremely low 2.13 ERA, and over 2,500 strikeouts. Just a dominant player. and definitely a very interesting player when you talk about the history. The next one I'm going to talk about is going to be Carl Hubble. Now, a lot of people, when they think about Carl Hubble, about baseball historians, they know him as the guy who struck out 5 Hall of Famers in quick succession, which is Babe Ruth, Lou Gehrig, Jimmy Fox. Sorry, it's going to get me. Probably remember who it was, because Hubble's quite a memorable player. Oh yeah, Jimmy Fox, Al Simmons, and Joe Cronin. But a lot of people don't forget Carl Hubble was a Hall of Fame pitcher, and the main reason, his screwball. Like Christy Matthewson, it was his screwball. He was one of the best screwball pitchers of all time. But not only did he actually play for his entire career in San Francisco, not San Francisco, but for the Giants, he was on their payroll for the rest of his life, well after the team moved to San Francisco. He stayed with the team until the 70s, which is as a director of player development. He won over 250 games with an ERA less than 3 at 2.98, and he struck out 1,677 batters. He also was twice the MVP of the National League, turns out, and he appeared in 9 All-Star games. But definitely one of the all-time great pitchers of the 1930s. Then we get to Mel Lott, one of the all-time great sluggers of the game and one of the National League's most prolific home run sluggers during his era. He may have been short and used an unorthodox batting style, but he's persevered through it, and he hit over 500 home runs in his entire career. The first National League player to actually hit over 500, turns out. He was also a really solid hitter, and he's only one of 6 National League players to ever spend a 20-year career on his team, and a 12-time All-Star, and led the National League in home runs 6 times. But then I'm going to talk about probably the greatest Giant and probably the most iconic player, and one of the top 5 players of all time, Willie Mays, the Say Hey Kid himself. I mean, what's there to not love about Willie Mays? Flashy. He had great speed, his defense was exceptional, and he knew how to swing a bat almost better than most players. Okando with the follow. Thank you, Okando. Thank you so much. Hope to come by on your stream later. Hopefully, if you might stream later today, I might come by. Thank you so much, man. I really appreciate it. Let's see. It made him a massive fan favorite for years. He may have been quiet, but he was actually a really exceptional player, too. Oh yeah, he was also a 24-time All-Star as well, 12 Gold Gloves, hit 660 home runs, which is still around, I believe, 5th or 6th all-time as well. And a fun fact, he's actually the godfather of Barry Bonds. And the reason is that he was really good friends with Bobby Bonds, Barry Bonds' dad. And speaking of Barry Bonds, yeah, you guys probably know I'm going to talk about him. He may be one of the top 3 most controversial players I put here. But let's talk about the things that Barry Bonds accolades. Barry Bonds is one of the most dominant hitters the game has ever seen. He's so intimidating. Any pitchers during that time in his prime don't even want to pitch him. They would rather walk him than pitch him. He once hit 73 home runs in a season in 2001, and he hit 762 home runs, first all time. He was also the record 7 NL MVPs, which is by far the record. He nearly hit 3,000 hits. His accolades put him on another planet during that. But what made him so controversial? Well, it was the steroid scandals. He was a central figure in that whole scandal, mainly with the Balco scandal. And due to all this sort of stuff, that's why Barry Bonds' Hall of Fame legitimacy is so controversial. It's not something you don't see very often for much of the league. In fact, this year, in 2022, will be his last chance to get into the Hall of Fame. And this is something I would definitely keep a close eye on. His number is still retired in San Francisco, though. And one of the main reasons is that he might have used steroids. So I'm very curious to see what the Hall of Fame says about him, though. But if you look at his accomplishments, he's in another world. It's just the steroid issue was such a big problem. Had that steroid issue would have not happened, he would have been in the Hall of Fame, like with steroids never been found out and all that. He would have been in the Hall of Fame ages ago. But yeah, Barry Bonds definitely a very interesting player. And the final giant is Buster Posey. He just retired this last week, but Buster Posey was one of the key players of the Giants dynasty of the early 2010s. He was a seven-time All-Star and emerged as a great catcher. He was an MVP in 2012. He was offensively a very good player. But however, injuries did hurt Buster Posey's career, and he would never be the player that he was supposed to be. But despite all that, Buster Posey was just all around a great player. With a solid career batting average of 302, he had 5 Silver Sluggers, and he was also a solid defender. So Buster Posey can do a lot for the team. So that concludes the San Francisco Giants and such. So I wanted to ask you guys is how y'all's weekend has been. I know this week might have been busy for some of you. So I'm hoping everything is going well. I'm going to go ahead and switch the heading to another direction. Add in that turboprop. Tried the PC6 yet? I've heard a lot of device. I like the PC6. Like there's some things I like about it. First, the things I like about the PC6 from Asobo. First, I like the fact it comes with Steam gauges and floats by default instead of having to wait by Milviz for $50. The other thing too is that it's free. I don't have to pay anything for it. And the final thing I really do like about the Asobo PC6 is it provides something that the sim really needed for Turbo Pop Bushplane. That being said, this thing does have one con. The flight model needs some major improvements. I will absolutely agree, and there are some things that need some improvements for. For example, the flight model it can't really stall and such. I noticed, and the fact that that there's some things that this thing can't do what the Milviz version can. But I'm really hoping that if they can fix the flight model issues by sim update 8, I think it would be a point I would definitely use more often. But I kind of disagree. I agree with some of the people complain about it, but there are some things that I do like about it. So that's just kind of how I am. And that's just my honest thoughts about it. There are some things I do like about it, and there are things I don't like about it. I'm not saying it's bad. I think it just needs some fixes. But I don't think I'm willing to shell out. If I want to get the same thing as the Subway thing, I'm not willing to shell out $50 just so I could have like open doors and all that. Yes, the fight model would be better, but for that $50, I could potentially get $10 more and get the DC6, which would be a plane I would be better off. Yeah, I agree, Pando. It is bug bad. Yes, I agree. I completely agree with you. That's my issue with the PC6. It's the flight model, but to be fair, they just released it. And I mean, they were probably crunched for time because the Game of the Year edition plus Reno, they were probably crunched, if you be honest. And they really need to fix it. I'm not gonna rip into the thing too much because I know a lot of other people who are much more vocal about it. And I don't have the Milviz version, so I don't really know how to compare it to. But I kind of with them on that boat. So that's just how I really feel. I think it's more than a few improvements away from being better. But like I said, I agree. The flight model really needs some, and I'm not going to be around the bush for that. There you go. The flat, yeah, yeah, I agree. Yeah, I did that once. I tested the float version. It won't taxi in water. Yeah, that was something else I heard about too. Like I said, I heard a lot of people not be very happy about it. And to be fair, I can completely understand, especially if you float the Milviz version. Like, I'm not going to argue with that. Like, I don't mind flying it for a bit. Like, I don't think it'll ever be my dedicated plane for now. Like, I'll fly it more. It's just that I probably should wait to fly the PC6 until after the sim update. Until another sim update when they get a chance to fix the flight model. But that's why I'm thankfully looking more forward to the NX Cup. That being said, I think the all the points released, I think the ones I proved so that I like the most from the Game of the Year edition is the NX Cup. I actually like the NX Cup. I think it needs a few more improvements, but the NX Cup I think is the most complete of all the Game of the Year planes. So that's just how I kind of feel. So overall though, I kind of also enjoy the Reno planes. The Texan though, I have a lot of fun. The Texan, Texan's a lot of fun. And the Albatross was actually quite a smooth jet to fly. Like, it's actually quite straight. The pits was probably the least interesting for me, the single seat pits, because the other 3 planes were just more interesting. Like, the Albatross jet trainer is pretty interesting as well. And then obviously the Mustang Texan were both planes I was really wanting this. Because those are two very iconic World War II warbirds. So I'm mostly happy with it. Like I said, I think it needs work. I'm hoping the Sim Update 8 could fix some of those issues with the flight models and such. I know they try to make a lot of improvements with the other stuff in this patch, but I think they really need to actually do it. So for the airport, we're going to be heading to Visal Municipal. We're actually almost right next to it, so we're just going to land straight in at runway 30. So like I said, we are not very far from it at all. Here. So I never put a slideshow for this, but Visalia, California is definitely a very interesting city. Visal is located in the San Joaquin Valley, the fifth largest city in the whole valley. One of the things um, that makes it important is the valley oak trees that grow all over the valley. Visal is also home to the Visalia Rawhide minor league baseball team. And it's also home to the Vapor Trailers, which is the longest NHRA car club in the country. Definitely very well known for its it's definitely known for cycling and a few other things too. And some notable people of the city include Donald Blessing, one of the former owners of the Oakland Raiders, the Dragon Lady Shirley Shahan of the NHRA, and Stephen Vogt of the San Francisco Giants. These are at least just some of the iconic people that lived here. These, okay, I think they got done with the air. Off, yaw damper, heading, flight director off. There's the airport. I'm gonna go ahead and circle around. Just do a flight formation. They still did not fix the issue. Yeah, they still didn't fix the issue, even though a lot of people were wanting this thing fixed. They still did not fix the issue. I saw that on Murph's stream, and then I believe I saw it on Allison's stream, Martel. But no, they did not fix the issue, unfortunately. And that is still a very major issue, because obviously group flights are still popular as ever, if not even more so now than they used to. And doing group flights was one of the few things that Microsoft, with how accessible it is, this was one of the major deals for Flight Sim. So yeah, this was not really, I mean, that is a pretty major issue. Because that's like guys with me, Perth, Allison Johnson, Colonel Fork, and all the rest, and other Flight Sim communities like Kando. Oh, Kando, Bush League Legends. Those group flights are a huge deal, and if that does not get fixed, that's going to be an issue. Because it affects the way they create the content and everything. So, so guys, if you didn't know, this is actually going to be the second to last stream in the series. The series will actually end next Sunday. Hey, Alcoholic Shane, I'm having a good day. Good to see you again. Good to see you. I have officially landed here at Visala Municipal Airport, here outside of Visala, California. So let me go ahead and park the plane. Let me go into the showcase camera. And this is something Two-Tone Murphy has done, but I like to catch people's landings. This is something passed on from Murph. If it's one thing that showing you, speaking about Two-Tone Murphy, he has his own website, and this is the community I belong to. Two-Tone Murphy is an awesome content creator, and one of his links in his website is the Discord for all news related to him as well. I also have a Discord for my very own. I think it's up earlier in the link. So I see friends all still around here. And Martel. Parental will not land overflying the airport. Nope, no worries, Parental. Thanks for letting me know. No worries. No worries. So definitely been very interesting. I'm guessing I'm gonna head back to the aircraft and get back taking the air again. So I'm gonna go ahead and get taken back off Martel if you don't mind. If you're still watching Martel, I'm gonna go ahead and take back off again. Oh, 9 views already. This is pretty impressive. So we're gonna get back up to. Um, I'm gonna have to get back to 309 degrees. Yeah, Martel's elevation. So this here is Vasala to our right. Right here in our right is Vasala. Go a little bit slower until he catches up. Now we're gonna go ahead to our next destination here. So after we do a quick touch and go here, we're going to, and Martel just disappeared. Yeah, they did not fix the issue. Okay, now we're gonna go to Fresno. We're gonna fly over Chickamauga Field in Fresno, California. Now, Fresno is actually the fifth most populous city in all California, and it's named for the abundant ash trees in the area, and it has become since an economic hub for the region. Some of the iconic landmarks include the Blossom Trail, the Woodward Regional Park, and the Shizen Japanese Garden. Those are all located here. Some notable Fresnoites include Tom Seaver, who is terrific. Tom is one of the great pitchers of the 1970s. Sean is a rapper that has born here, and Les Richter were all born here in Fresno. And Fresno is actually the third largest majority Hispanic city in the country, with just barely over half the people here in Fresno actually being, well, Hispanic. I need to head back to the. So now we're going to talk about the other team we're going to talk about here today, the Oakland Athletics. So the Oakland Afflecks are one of Major League Baseball's oldest. They're definitely among the American League's oldest franchises. They were one of the original charter teams of the American League back in 1901. They currently play in the American League West. They originally played in Philadelphia, but have since moved to Kansas City and then moved right now to Oakland. They have 9 World Series championships, tied with the Red Sox as second in the American League, 15 American pennants, 17 division titles in the American League, and 4 wildcard berths. They currently play at the Oakland Coliseum, and the team colors are green, gold, and white. And from 1901 to of this year, they've won over 9,150 games to 9,550 losses. And one of the fun facts about the Oakland Athletics that a lot of people seem to forget is they were in the team that was featured in the well-known book and in the feature film Moneyball. Now, the story Moneyball revolves around the general manager Billy Beane and his unorthodox style, and we'll get to that a bit later. Is Fresno particularly unsafe? Yeah, it is particularly unsafe, unfortunately. Unfortunately, Fresno is not exactly safe. Yes, Martin. Fresno has historically not been a very safe city. So now when we talk about the history of the Afflecks, let's talk about the history a bit. Let's start with their history here in Philadelphia. Now, in Philadelphia, the Afflecks were one of the original teams of the American League. And they quickly established themselves as one of the most dominant teams, winning the American League pennant in 1902, 1905, 1910, 1911, and 1913 and 1914, winning the pennant 6 times. And they won 3 of them. In 1909, they actually moved to the first steel ballpark, Shibe Park, which will later be named Connie Mack Stadium. Now, we've already flown over the site back in, if anyone remembers what we did in Philadelphia, we actually flew over the site. But it's a very classic ballpark. And then in 1910, Connie Mack, the manager of the team, he helped form the $100,000 infield, consisting of 4 iconic players of the era: Duffy McInnes, Eddie Collins, Jack Barry, and Frank Home Run Baker. And with this team, they actually took home the World Series in 1910, 1911, and 1913. Helped them take home a bit of a dynasty here in Philadelphia. However, unfortunately, things did not go so well for the Afflecks because the Federal League in 1915 took away a lot of the talent from the Afflecks, and this was not good at all. In fact, they finished to last place nearly every year through 1922, and they would have contended to 1925. The Afflecks, it really screwed them over. By the latter half of the 20s, Connie Mack returned back with a vengeance as he assembled one of the most feared batting orders of all time with guys like Al Simmons and Jimmy Fox. He took and Mickey Cochrane as well, who is one of the best catchers in history. I almost mentioned Mickey Cochrane. He led them to another set of World Series titles. They won 3 straight pennants in 29, 1930, and 1931, and won the World Series in 29, 1930. And they took down both the Cubs and the Cardinals in those 2 World Series appearances. However, that World Series proved to be one of the last hurrahs for the A's in Philadelphia because of the lasting effects of the Great Depression and World War II. The A's finished in last or next to last in nearly every year except 1944 at last place. Though in 1947 they did surprise much of baseball as they did have their first win season in 14 years in 47, and they contended for much of the 48 season, but outside of that, it didn't really do very much. Okay, let me get a stop to this. So this is Fresno here. We're gonna look for the ballpark. Here's downtown Fresno. Ah, there she is. This is the Fresno Grizzlies ballpark, minor league ballpark. Um, there. Let me go ahead and return the heading. Yeah, I had to delete it. I apologize, but I was no spam in the chat. So in the late 40s, early 50s, there was a conflict of ownership between Connie Mack and a few other people, and eventually Mack retired, and the team with new ownership by Arnold Johnson, they moved the team out of Philadelphia into Kansas City. And once they moved to Kansas City, they were barely competitive. And one of the main reasons was because Aaron Johnson had close ties to the New York Yankees. So many of the Afflecks' best players in Kansas City were traded to the Yankees, and that was a bit of collusion. So thankfully, Charles O'Finley bought the team. And while the A's were still dreadful, he built a future contender through all of this. And this would eventually lead the Afflecks dynasty of the 1970s. Like I said, the A's in Kansas City they're not really relevant. And eventually in 1967, Finley moved the team to Oakland, which is where they're still at here right now. And thanks to him moving to Oakland, Charles Finley built a contender. As in 1971, they eventually get to the ALCS after they won 101 games in the American League West. However, they faced against the Baltimore Orioles in the ALCS and fell to the eventual world champions of 1971 as well. Then the next year, the A's started their new dynasty. As in 1972, they beat the Reds in the World Series for their first title since 1930. And not only did they defend their American League title, they defended the World Series as well in back-to-back years in 1973 and 1974 by beating the Mets and Dodgers in those World Series to build another dynasty in Oakland. The A's repeated in 1975 as AL West champs, but they fell to the Boston Red Sox in the American League Championships. The rest of the 70s, they kind of fell behind, and the team was then sold to Walter Haas before the 81 season. And they rebuilt, and thanks to his leadership, they rebuilt the team with young talent. And they hired another manager named Tony La Russa, one of the greatest managers in history, during the 1986 season. And La Russa built the A's back into a contending team once again, as they won 3 straight pennants in 1988, 89, and 1990. But in all of those, he never won the champ. He only won one of those. In '88, he fell short to Lasorda's Dodgers. He won the championship in '89 against the Giants and across the Bay. And in 1990, they got shocked by the Cincinnati Reds with Barry Larkin. The team began to decline for much of the 1990s, but they still were incredibly successful in the early 90s. They were still somewhat successful with an AL West title in '92, but they never could continue going. And eventually, the Haas family sold the leadership into 1995. And with new leadership, they maintained a strong farm system, but they couldn't keep their star talent. So what did the A's do? Well, they get Billy Beane, and he completely changed baseball. As he instead of valuing the instead of traditional skills like power, strength, and all that, the A's value statistical prowess, which is what we know is called Moneyball, which is based off what of a full motion picture. And because of this, the A's continue to be really good, near the top of the AL West despite having a low payroll, including 2003 when they won 22 straight games that year as well. But they never could advance past the first round, though. Most of those were to the Yankees. In 2005, they were sold by Lewis Wolf. And in 2006, went to the ALCS, but lost to the Tigers. They returned back to the postseason in 2012 after a few disappointing seasons. And they lost to the Tigers again, and then the same thing repeated in 2013 as well. And the A's, as of now, would reach the postseason in 2018, 2019, and 2020 with all postseason appearances. But like normal, they couldn't get past the divisional round. So in terms of athletic players and legends for the Athletics, and yes, amazing Athletics, there's quite a few amazing ones. One of the most amazing Athletics, and probably the most influential player in the team's franchise, influential man in the history, Connie Mack. His real name is Cornelius McGillicuddy, but he's way more known for his nickname, Connie Mack. He managed and owned the Afflecks for the first 50 seasons of the team. Yes, he managed the Afflecks from 1901 to 1950. 50 seasons. And he was known for striving his players to be better people as well as better players. And that's what his code of conduct was. Connie Mack managed 7,555 games with 3,731 wins and 3,948 losses. Mind you, those are all first all-time by managers. And to put in the context, he has well over 1,000 more wins, games played, and losses than the next guy ahead of him. He also helped the A's win 3 American League pennants and 5 World Series titles for his time in the Afflecks, and he was inducted to the Hall of Fame in 1937. Eddie Collins, how about the linchpin of that infamous $100,000 infield? He was one of the best second basemen of all time. In fact, if you put modern stats, many people say he might even be the best second baseman of all time. He was known for he's extremely intelligent, he was confident, he knew how to swing a bat, and his speed. He did steal 745 stolen bases, mind you, which is 7th all-time among all players. He had 3,315 hits. This man had 47 home runs, which is the lowest of anyone in the 3,000 hits club. And he still had 1,300 RBIs, which made him an extremely impressive player. Then we get to Jimmy Fox, one of the most feared sluggers of all time. Jimmy Fox was AKA the Beast. He was dominant in the batter's box, and he had strong contact power. During his prime with the A's and Red Sox, he had 30 or more home runs in 12 straight seasons and drove in more than 100 runs in 13 straight years. He took home a batting triple crown in 1933, a thin record, 3-time American League MVP, a 9-time All-Star, and led the AL in home runs 4 times. Definitely a very feared hitter, to say the least. Then we get to Lefty Grove. Many people consider him to be the greatest left-handed pitcher of all time, if not probably one of the most dominant to ever play baseball. He was a huge piece of that team during the 2 titles in 1929-1930. He was elected to the Hall of Fame in 1947, and in 1999 he was ranked 23rd among the Sporting News list of best baseball players. He won 300 games. His ERA was 3.09, and he had over 2,200 strikeouts. A six-time All-Star. He won the American League MVP in 1931. Four times led the American League in wins. How about a record 9 times led the AL in the lowest ERA? Because it 7 times led the American League in strikeouts. If you talk about modern statistics, Lefty Grove would actually be among the lowest and he would be the sixth lowest when adjusted by league ERA and ballpark adjustments, which is insane. Now, a fun fact, his performance in the Class D Blue Ridge League attracted the attention of a certain guy named Jack Dunn Sr. And why so important? This man also discovered the talent of Babe Ruth. And I mean, considering that he was discovered by the man who found Babe Ruth, you know you're probably going to be a really good player. Next one, Mr. October, Reggie Jackson. Most effective sluggers of the 1970s, and due to the fact he was so clutch in the postseason, it's what led him to that famous nickname, Mr. October. His .262 batting average, which made him a very fierce slugger, a 14-time All-Star. He took home the 1973 AL MVP. He has 2 World Series MVPs as well, and led the American League in home runs 4 times. Then we get to Dennis Eckersley. Before he came to Oakland, he was a decently successful starter, but Tony La Russa decided to make him a closer and reliever, and that completely changed his career. In fact, so much he became a Hall of Famer. He had a great sinker and slider combo, made him extremely devastating. He became one of only 2 pitchers to have a 21 season and a 50 save season in a career. The other player, John Smoltz of the Atlanta Braves. Eckersley, he only won 200 games. He also had 390 saves during his career as well, which he could have gotten more. He was a dedicated reliever. He would have gotten even more. 2,400 strikeouts. A 6-time All-Star. He took home the AL MVP in 1992. Yes, a reliever took home an MVP. But he had one of the great pitching seasons of all time, and twice was the AL reliever of the year. And finally, how about the most feared base runner of all time? Rickey Henderson, the Man of Steel, was undoubtedly baseball's greatest leadoff hitter. He had really good power for a player leadoff. He can get on base. And he was an absolute nightmare on the base paths. If you saw him on base, you know he's going to probably steal a base. Because he stole 1,406 of them. To put in perspective, the next guy on the list after Rickey Henderson was Lou Brock, and he only had 979 stolen bases. That's almost 500 more than him. He also got 3,000 hits with 297 home runs. He's a 10-time All-Star, won the AL MVP in 1990, and 12 times led the American League in stolen bases. And that will complete the Oakland Afflecks for a bit. So we're nearly there. So I need to go to 4. So yeah, that is the Afflecks. Also forgot the Afflecks team colors. Historically, they've been navy blue and gray, but now, because of Charlie Finley and all that, they're now green and gold. Again, the only team in the Major League to have green and gold as the main colors. Pretty cool. So any one of those who's been on the Two-Tone Murphy community, well, apparently he revealed a new series that's going to happen sometime soon, and that is the Northwest Passage. He actually just revealed it. And that's going to happen on Monday. So he's going to return his Monday series by going through the Northwest Passage in the DC6. Now, since I don't have the DC6, I might take the TBM, or I might take the Mustang. I also heard that next week we're going to get the DC6 on the marketplace. And it might even come on console too, which is going to be awesome. More people are going to flood the DC6, which is going to be awesome. DC6 is such a wonderful bird. This here is the DC6, and I mean, this is beautiful here. Really, really, really beautiful area. How fast does the plane need to be keep up with the DC6? Well, let me give you the stats of the DC6 and see where we need to go. So for the DC6 plane, in terms of the Douglas DC6, I believe the DC6 specifications, according to the specs, it can go up to around 273 knots for its cruise speed. So something within 260 to 200 to 300 knots. So that means the planes that we need to take is we can take the Mustang, we can take the Spitfire, we can also take the TBM and the King Air. We can take those with us. Any plane that can keep up within 270 knots. Now you reappeared for me. Oh, I do see you, and I see friends all as well. Good to see you. I also saw on Colonel Fork's stream today that he's actually gonna return streaming for the first time in several weeks. Colonel Fork's gonna be back streaming, so we're gonna land on runway 31. So we just need clear over the second hill. So this is Hollister, right in front of us. Second 220 knots. I think for the rest of this, we can stay within 1,500 feet. I'm gonna land straight in and runway 24. There's our runway down here. So right here. And that should be it. Easy. Like, this thing can do short takeoffs and landings. You'd be quite surprised that, yeah, the TBM could be a STOL plane. All right. And there's Martel. Hey, Martel, good to see you. So I land here for just a little bit. Didn't catch a land. No worries. Martel, I'm gonna get ready to get back into the air. We're gonna go to the final leg of the trip. So let's pull up the final leg. So the final leg of the trip is we're going to go to San Jose, and the rest we can stay within 1,500 feet. This really isn't an issue. And we need to get to around 360 degrees. We'll be doing it for 34 nautical miles. This one we don't need to be particularly quick. So, so we can get to 1,500 feet. So now once we get there, we're going to head to San Jose for a bit. So San Jose is actually, what many people think is one of the largest cities, San Jose is actually larger than San Francisco. It's actually the third most populous city in California, and it's located in the center of the Santa Clara Valley. Now, the city is most well known for being the center of innovation. Lots of different technology places call San Jose home. It's also very affluent, and its cost of living is among the highest in the entire country. Now, there's quite a few landmarks I know. Santana Row is one of the more iconic landmarks. Has been San Jose. There's also SAP Center, home of the San Jose Sharks, San Jose's original major league team. And the Winchester Mystery House is one of the other homes. Now, some notable people include Steve Wozniak, who was born here in San Jose, and he was the guy who partnered with Steve Jobs to form Apple, one of the biggest names in all tech. Charles Martinet. Charles Martinet is the voice of Mario, believe it or not. If you ever play any Super Mario games, like Mario Odyssey, Mario Galaxy, Sunshine, if you recognize his voice, that's Charles Martinet. He was the one who voiced him. And legendary head coach Bill Walsh called San Jose home. And San Jose is really where he got his career all started. So we're going to be flying over Excite Ballpark. That's home to the Giants single A affiliate. The San Jose Giants should be coming up right ahead of us. It's beautiful scenery. Yeah, the scenery here is really nice. Like this part of California is kind of nice too. sorry for the late reply. I'm flying the Embraer 100 version 1.2, not a complete sim, but for freeware. Oh, cool. That's cool. The Embraer. I know that Aerosoft's actually worked on an Embraer, the CRJ 900 and 1000 models. I know they just released that very soon in the marketplace, the CRJs and all that. I believe that's what it is. Yeah, the Embraer CRJ. Yep. They just released those. Print all. Embraer Phenom 100. Not easy to find. Cool. Yeah, this is definitely a very nice area to fly over. So, my internet's spotty. I may be missing messages. No worries, friends all. Yeah, my internet was kind of spotty. In fact, the spotty internet of mine yesterday costed me a free Owls and Johnson t-shirt. But, I mean, I got the t-shirt now, so it's not really a big deal. Now, this here is a site ballpark down over here. This is the home of the San Jose Giants minor league baseball team. Down right over here. Team. So over here under the window, this is SAP Arena. This is home to the San Jose Sharks NHL team. They've been around San Jose since 1992. And it's definitely one of the toughest places in all of ice hockey. Play on the road. Very difficult environment to win. Next is going to be Levi Stadium in San Francisco. This is home to the San Francisco 49ers team. And I still say it's a big, massive mistake. Oh, there she is. This here is Levi Stadium. I know it's not rendered in really well, but there's Levi Stadium in the background. Unfortunately, I haven't gotten close enough to it. here's Levi Stadium over here, the home of the San Francisco 49ers, and I still think it's a huge mistake that they moved away from downtown San Francisco. It's really nice. The cockpit is very structured. Maybe it's a good step further from GA. Yeah, it's not so crazy. It's an airline thing. But it's still got enough airline stuff to remind you this isn't a true GA plane. Now ahead of us should be Stanford University. Now Stanford is in Palo Alto, and it is one of the most prestigious, both academically and athletic universities in the country. In fact, they've won a crap ton of national championships in many sports, making Stanford a collegiate powerhouse in the country. Well, yeah, but oh, you posted the links. Okay, let me look. So guys, right over here is Stanford University, just all the way over here. This building over here is Stanford Stadium, home of their football team, the Cardinal. University Tower and all of the stuff within Stanford is right here. Back to the cockpit. Let me get back into the. Let me turn this thing around. So the next place we're going to be visiting next is going to be Candlestick Park. Let me move. Candlestick Park, okay. So this is Candlestick Park. So Candlestick Park was opened in 1960. It was the home of the Giants from 1960 to 1999. It was also the home of the San Francisco 49ers. It was the home from 1971 to 2013 to 20. I think it was 2012, I believe. For baseball, it can hold 63,000 fans. When the Giants moved out, originally it could have held 43,000 fans. And the dimensions, for the most part, were symmetrical, except for the foul lines. Left field was about 7 feet deeper than the right field lines. But one of the things that made Candlestick Park such a really tough infamous was because it was right next to the San Francisco Bay, it was extremely windy. The air was damp, there was tons of dew, and because it's right next to the bay, it was also quite chilly. And not to mention, seagulls were kind of a thing too in the Gulf. Some notable moments at Candlestick Park was the catch during the 1981 NFC Championship game, when Dwight Clark catched it against the Cowboys. The final public Beatles concert was performed here in Candlestick in 1967, and the 1989 World Series was played here at Candlestick Park. Someone's consuming my bandwidth in the house. I got the lag of death. Oh no. So over here is actually one of the handcrafted airports. If you get the Premium Deluxe Edition, this is actually one of the handcrafted airports for Premium Deluxe. And this is San Francisco International, one of the deluxe handcrafted airports. KSFO. Citation Jet's not bad in Sim, especially working title mod, but the avionics are a bit dated. Yeah, that's from what I heard. I heard some people say that that's the case. So we're heading to the Candlestick Park site. And now we're going to talk about the next thing I want to talk about, and that is the city of San Francisco herself. Now, San Francisco is the fourth most populous city. So yes, actually more people live in San Jose than San Francisco, it turns out. Now, San Francisco was established back in June 29, 1776, when colonists from Spain established the Presidio of San Francisco at Golden Gate. It is known for its cool summers, fog, steep rolling hills, and eclectic mix of architecture and landmarks. Some of those landmarks include the famous Golden Gate Bridge, Alcatraz Island, where Al Capone was being held, and one of the longest running Chinatowns in the entire country. Some of those notable people include Steve Jobs, Levi Strauss, who made his Levi branded jeans, and Clint Eastwood. And that's to say not the least. Now, Seal Stadium would be the first stadium we're going to be visiting here. Actually, wait. Oh, they got Candlestick Park. So there's Candlestick Park, actually. Let me get the... Okay. Let me move the drone. Candlestick Park is actually here. I thought they tore this one down when they did the sim. So guys, this is Candlestick Park. So when Microsoft did the whole thing, they actually got Candlestick here. But this was a configuration for football, mind you. For American football, this is what it was configured to be. So you definitely see some of the football playing landmarks. Definitely pretty cool. I was not expecting to see Candlestick Park. And then, Steel Stadium is the former home of the Giants for the first couple seasons. Their first 2 seasons, San Francisco was the home of the Giants, was Seal Stadium. Since it was one of the unique features, it actually had 3 dressing rooms. 1 for the visitors and 2 for each of the clubs that played baseball here at Seal Stadium. It was small. You only see it 22,000 people. It wasn't really much. But the one we're here for is Oracle Park. This was opened all the way back in 2000 and has been the current home of the Giants ever since. And many people would consider it to be the best ballpark in baseball. It can seat 41,000 fans, nearly 42,000 fans, and the outfield dimensions were 339 in left, 399 left center, 391 center field, 415 at right center, and 309 at right field. Now, there has been quite a few unique features about this ballpark. The most famous feature is right field, at Covey Cove. And actually, let me go ahead. It's actually, we're right next to it, so. And So let me go ahead and park. Let me get the showcase. So this here is Oracle Park, an actual landmark that's actually a POI landmark in the game. So let's talk about this ballpark. Now, this right field area here, this is Mcgraw Cove. You can actually take a boat into this stadium by boat. And balls can actually fly out of the wall in right field into the cove, which is a really cool feature here at Oracle Park. And all that on top of it is a walkway. In the left field here, we actually have two unique sculptures: a giant bronze glove and a steel metal Coca-Cola bottle here at left field. Now, in order to hit this one, you need to have around 500 plus feet to actually hit it. And then at right field, beyond the fence, you see an actual authentic San Francisco trolley cart. Definitely an iconic feature of San Francisco. And one of the things this park was notorious for was for triples. When this park was originally built, this was a notorious area for triples and other stuff to hit in the park. It was definitely a notorious for all that too. And that's what made this park really notorious for triples. Ichiro once even hit an inside park the home run during the All-Star game. And I hear someone with the F-18 Hornet. I was thinking about flying it, but knowing how loud it is, I better get back to my cockpit. But yeah, this was Oracle Park. But definitely a beautiful place to watch a game. So this is San Francisco. This is downtown. Now we're going to visit the next one. San Francisco's most famous landmark, the Golden Gate Bridge. This bridge was built in 1937. And it was one of the most iconic bridges on the entire planet. It's definitely very popular for all sorts of photographers, and for sightseeing purposes. You can actually take a ship through the Fisherman's Wharf, which we overlooked. There's the Fisherman's Wharf, right over here. So we're gonna fly by the Golden Gate Bridge. The Golden Gate, what an iconic bridge! There's the Golden Gate Bridge. And there's someone with an F-18. That's what it sounds like. Someone brought the Super Hornet. So this here is the Golden Gate Bridge. Definitely one of the world's iconic bridges, that's for sure. Surprised this wasn't a Subo POI landmark. Yeah, there's some F-18s. I see why a lot of people like to fly those. Those are very popular planes in the sim right now. You gotta be kidding. Please let this be fixed. Oh, come on. This has been near perfect so far. Come on, Sim, you can do it. Oh, no. I'm gonna have to exit out of the sim and return back in. It just stopped. It stopped cold. But I am not giving it up, though. Yeah, I had to exit out. I'm gonna load back in and in Oakland. Now, the reason we're going to Oakland is because that's where the Afflecks play at. Kamala Harris. And then finally, we got to talk about the Oakland Coliseum. So the Oakland Coliseum was opened back in 1966. It's been the home of the Afflecks since 1968. Now, the ballpark currently seats 46,000 fans, but it can expand to 56,000 without tarps. And the outfield dimensions are symmetrical. So what's some of the features about the Oakland Coliseum? Well, the Oakland Coliseum's had major issues since then. Sewage has been a problem. It's severely outdated, even by modern standards. It has. Compared to the other baseball facility that opened near the same time, Kauffman Stadium, it did not age as gracefully as Kauffman Stadium. One of the most infamous features is Mount Davis, and the reason they built that was so as they can bring back the Oakland Raiders football team. But I think it's a huge mistake, especially considering, well, the Raiders moved to Las Vegas only around 20 years later. Just over 20 years later, moved to Las Vegas. So it also has a massive foul territory, by far the largest in the major leagues. It has an absolute gargantuan foul territory. And it was also just not really that good of a stadium. I think it's worse than Tropicana Field. At least the Trop A had a dome. 2, the Rays at least put some major improvements to make it better. So some moments include multiple different World Series appearances in 1972, 73, 74, and 89. The Heine game, which was a rather infamous NFL game that happened, and Dallas Braden's 2010 perfect game. But I'm not quitting this trip just yet. I am I'm going to load in back in Oakland, right outside the Coliseum, and that'll complete our journey. I at least want to end this journey properly before all this. So the two images on the Coliseum, let me put them back up. The top one represented the Coliseum when it was a baseball stadium back in the early days. And this is what Oakland Coliseum looks like now. And I gotta say, I think it looked better at the top. I'm really hoping Oakland gets a new stadium, but if not, the 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 A's could relocate somewhere else. Maybe Vegas. Actually, if you guys don't mind, I'm probably gonna end the stream. So, overall though, I have to say the stream went well for the most part. There was that major stoppage, in the later half of the stream, so I'm gonna go ahead and try to raid someone. I'm sorry we couldn't end the trip. I'm really, really sorry about it. Actually, no, I'm not gonna end the stream. Load in. I'm loading back in with you, Martel, so we can get the stream finished. I'm back. Hey, I'm back in the sim now. Woohoo! So now this little island over here, that's that place right here. It is Alcatraz. Hey, Martel, I'm back. Told you I wasn't giving up, and then Martel just disappeared again. Good stream. San Francisco's seen out of date on my PC, which explains Candlestick Park is still been there. Are new stadiums expected? You saw Levi Field, which was their new stadium. I'm hoping Oakland gets a new stadium. I just drove the TV multiple times on sightseeing. I pulled way too much G's. Yeah. So here's Oakland. So we're flying across the Oakland Bay. So here's the Oakland Coliseum and Chase Arena. So this now here is Chase. Now this is the old arena of the Golden State Warriors to play here. So this here is the Oakland Coliseum. It is not aged well at all. I think it's by far the worst stadium in the major leagues. Tropicana Field, at least, it's indoors. Two, you have much better sight lines for all the stuff. So this is what the Oakland Coliseum looks like in the sim. You have that gargantuan foul territory. Now, before this was built here, Mount Davis, you would have great sightlines of the hills and mountains over there, but because of this, you really couldn't see it, and that was a huge issue. In fact, the only reason they built this was so they can bring the Oakland Raiders back. But looking back on this, to be honest, it was not a good idea. Looking back, it was a really big mistake. But that's just me. But I'm just doing it considering what the Raiders looked like. So I'm gonna land on runway 28R, and then I can finish the stream and finally end it. Oh, I think I figured out the problem with that bug I just had. I activated the next pilot position from the default cockpit. And that should be it then. Yeah, the thing just reversed. Huh. Well, hey, I'm done here. So that should be it then. That should be the end of my stream. So I wanted to thank everyone here for being here, all the new follows, all the new viewers, everyone in chat. Thank you for coming back here. So thanks everyone, despite who stick through since the whole stoppage. I figured out what the bug was. So now I should be able to solve the problem from happening again. So guys, on Wednesday, I know a lot of people said I want to do something with warbirds. So on next Wednesday, I'll be doing something with warbirds in backcountry. How about a backcountry warbird stream on the T6 Texan in the bush? And then on Sunday, this will be the finale of the series. We'll be heading from here in Oakland to Seattle. I might take one of the new Reno birds, the L-31 Albatross, out or the F-18 Hornet, and we'll fly to Seattle from Oakland. So I want to say, everyone, thank you so much. Now we're gonna find out who we're gonna raid, and I have a really easy person to raid. We're gonna raid Beam It today. I'm in a Beam It kind of mood, so we're gonna raid her, guys. I think you all would agree with me on this one as a good choice. So let's go raid Beam It, and hope we could see you guys soon. Hopefully we can see you guys soon. Thank you, everyone, and have a good rest of the day.